Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Okay. And I think they can see the screen. My name is Dave Krug. I teach accounting here at JCCC. I've been here 21 years as a full-timer, 4 years as an adjunct before that. It's a great job. I love my job. Jonathan, I think about when you were in ed tech. You ever fathom how much ed tech has changed since you started and since I started? Or, I don't know when you started. I was in '04. We barely had email, and we never got emails from students back then. But it's quite a bit different, but it's a great place to work. And I'm glad to be able to do this. I'm going to talk about my 95 days overseas. And it was tremendous. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this because I don't know if that's also, I'll just move that up there. I'm going to talk about my 95 days overseas. I will say when I do travel logs, I don't like to so much talk about like there's 12 branches of parliament in the Netherlands. I don't think people care about that sort of stuff. I like to talk more about the personal stuff, the things that are kind of interesting. So I guess I'll let you decide if that's the case. But I took my sabbatical. It was the first time I took a sabbatical. That's my wife and I at the airport getting ready to leave. And it was my first sabbatical I'd ever taken. We took it intentionally in fall of 2024 because I wanted to be out of the country during the presidential election. And it worked out nicely. I did not see one political commercial. It was great. Everything that I took is in that backpack for 95 days. Okay. And my wife had a little bit more, as she explains to me, women need more stuff than guys do. I have a spreadsheet of what I took. And I took 4 shirts. I took 2 pairs of pants. I took 1 pair of shoes. I did take 6 pairs of underwear. Took 4 pairs of socks. I mean, I had it down exactly. And people were like, oh, and I washed my clothes in the sink at nights. It was just wonderful. But it was really great to be a minimalist. It was like, okay, here are the shirts I can pick from today. I got to tell you, it was wonderful. So, but everything was in there. That's at the airport. That's us getting ready to leave. I'm a huge believer in travel. I'll let you read this. I know you know how to read. I am a huge believer in traveling overseas. I think one of the best things we can do for our students is to organize as many short-term study abroads as we can. I know Dan and I, 3 or 4 years ago, took students to Germany, and some of them had never even flown before. And you can talk all you want about Germany, but when you spend time in Germany, it's totally different. So I went to enrich myself as well as to work on my sabbatical project. This is the $1 million slide. This is where we went for 95 days. And I planned this whole thing by myself, well, with the help of my wife. We did not use a service. And it was like I was planning the invasion in Normandy. It was... I started in the north in August, and we came south so that we would follow the nice weather. Okay. So that's the list of cities that we were in. And that's how many days we stayed in each city. And I have them even color coded by country. And so that was our trip. We did not drive a car for 95 days. Everything we did was public transportation, mainly trains. Every Airbnb we got was within a quarter mile of a train station, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So it was all very well planned. We mainly, Airbnbs is where we stayed. We stayed in Airbnbs. And so my people go, what were your favorites? Those are in my top 5. My all-time favorite was Pompeii and Salzburg. So if you have not been to those cities, I'm going to make a case today for them. But that's a lot of cities. Okay, that is a lot of cities. And and then we actually took a cruise back to the States. We left from Rome, stopped a few places, and then it was a transatlantic cruise back. It was actually cheaper to take a cruise back than to fly. Hey, Dave. So that is our trip. That was the game plan. And I have another spreadsheet that says, here's where we wake up. Here's where we go to sleep that night. Here's where it's down. It is a true accounting spreadsheet. So we tried to pick towns. I have a lot of friends in Europe, and I asked them, what are the great towns to visit in Europe that people don't know about? I would much rather go to a smaller town with less tourists than the huge ones. Okay. So we have a few huge ones on here. The only reason we really went to Rome, though, is that was where our cruise departed from. But some of these cities, Perugia, Arona, not have even heard of. But they were specifically because I asked my European friends. I described to them what we liked, and that's where we went. We did go to a couple larger towns, Florence and Genoa, but those were actually some of my least favorite ones. It was just too much, too urban, too crowded. I like the smaller ones. I did do my sabbatical work. So I worked on my sabbatical project. I'm not going to get real in depth into my sabbatical project on this presentation. That's a different presentation if you ever want to hear it. I'm writing a book in regards to the emotional and mental health of students, the things I observed with students and things that have helped me and things that have helped my students. So that was what I did. I wanted a sabbatical project I could write. I could go anywhere because I wanted to go out of the country. I'm just going to try to do this chronologically too much, but I just want to talk about some things. This was our first city. We were one of the first cities, Wiesbaden, Germany. And this was at a church. And we were in Wiesbaden, and we were there over a period of a Sunday in there. And so I said, let me just Google English-speaking churches in Wiesbaden, Germany. And this one popped up. And we said, well, let's go. So we went, and it was a great day. It happened to be their anniversary Sunday, and they had a barbecue after the church service. And so it was 11 a.m., and we were praying. And then at 11:10 a.m., they were handing out beer and barbecue. And I said, this is a church that I can get behind. And we met these wonderful people. It was English speaking, so they all spoke English. And that was just a lovely, lovely thing. We went to Cologne, Germany. Now, and you remember this, Dave, in 2007, almost 20 years ago, Dave and I went on the Dutch exchange. And we stayed with a family, and the family had a 13-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old daughter, and we have stayed in touch with them. That's the oldest daughter. She's now in her mid-30s, and she has a baby. She's actually had another baby since then. And so they came to Cologne. We met in Cologne and spent some time together. And it's just a wonderful experience. We're actually going back to Europe for 21 days this summer. And we're going to go to the Netherlands for 5 days, and we're going to stay with them. We are they have two babies now. This one's about 2. Yeah, they have another one that's about 8 months. Those are our de facto grandchildren because we don't have any grandchildren. From Netherlands or yeah. But, and their mom died, and so they don't have a mom. And Gerd, you remember Gerd? Yeah, he doesn't get to see the kids much. So we're really enjoying to spend some time with them. But, that Dutch exchange was 19 years ago, and it's still, those relationships still are surviving and thriving. This was in Mainz, Germany. This is somebody I went to high school with. And I went there and met up with her. She owns a barbecue in Mainz, Germany. And it was actually really good barbecue. And this was a kid that we met that actually lives in Overland Park, like 3 blocks from us. So you will see people all over the world that are like, oh, you're from Overland Park too. So that was very fun. Music is the international language. Some of you know I'm in a band. I've been in a band for nearly 20 years. I play keyboards and harmonica. This was in the Cologne airport. They had a grand piano there just for anybody to play. And so I sat down and played that. And I played Your Song by Elton John. And some people came around and we all sang. Very nice. I have a video of that. I'm not going to show that to you, but there's a video of it. And I at a blues At a blues bar, I brought a harmonica or two. So one nice thing about playing the harmonica is it's easily transportable. As a matter of fact, the harmonica is the only instrument that's been played on the moon. So there's a little trivia for you, because it's very, very portable. So I took a harmonica, and when I was with that blues band, I said, "Can I play with you guys?" And I did, and that was very, very fun. I also, every now and then, in some of the cities, would play like on a bridge and for tips, and I got a few tips. So that was fun. This is again is in Germany. There's a duplicate picture in there. Okay, this is the other daughter of my Netherlands friend, and she and her husband met us in Strasbourg, France. Strasbourg, France. We were going to go to Stuttgart, Germany, Stuttgart, and it canceled, and so we had to pick another city. And so I was like, "Well, let's go to Strasbourg." It's literally like 100 yards on the other side of the border. It was one of our favorite cities. Oh my goodness sakes! Have you ever heard of Strasbourg, France? There he is. That's it right there. And one thing I really learned that I like is I love to go to college towns, because I interact with college students all the time. So, and with my wife and I there, if we see some college students, we can say, "Hey, you guys go to college here?" We can strike up a conversation. But that was one of my favorite cities, and that is the light show that they do on the cathedral. We really enjoyed doing was we would rent e-bikes, and we would bike around the countrysides. And I don't know have you guys ridden e-bikes before? You still have to pedal, but it's really nice. And we would just ride around the farming communities. I don't know what this is, but I saw my name up there, so I had to take a picture of that. Krug is a very German name. I think it means like beer stein or something like that. Here is another. One of the things we love to do is we would always go into the churches and cathedrals. Okay? I'm a person of faith, and so I love to go into different churches, and some of these are. And this was the smallest little church that I found. That's it right there. And I'm standing in the back of it. It's three pews, and I just thought that was very nice. But that was in a little farming community that was there. I was on my e-bike, yeah. Bigger castles are not always better castles. Everybody's seen this castle here before. Neuschwanstein. Yeah. It's fine. But I gotta tell you. And then there's this castle. This castle was built in the 1800s, which wasn't that long ago. When you go to Europe, you get really snobby because you see things that are 1,500, 2,000, 2,300 years old. So when you see something that's like 200 years old, you're like, I don't even have time to read about you. But this is basically was a castle made by a guy that had way too much money that was just trying to impress people. Okay, thankfully, we don't have those people in the war anymore. But there's not it's a boring story. It's not really that interesting. There's parts of the castle that aren't even finished. What we much more preferred was a castle like this. We found that on an e-bike ride, and that's like from the 1300s. And they had things you can go like this room used to be their chapel. This room used to be their kitchen. Guy than that guy. And there's a million people here. There's nobody there. And we just found that by pedaling and said, what is that up on the hill? Let's go up there and see. And it just so happens to be a castle that was created in 1350. That's 100 years before Columbus sailed his journey. 140 years, right? So, but bigger castles are not always better, at least in my opinion. We were in Regensburg, Germany. First of all, I ate some of the best pizza I've ever had in Germany, because obviously there's a lot of Italian immigrants over in Germany. We were there. We were in Germany during Oktoberfest. Now everybody always hears about Oktoberfest in like Munich. We weren't in Munich, but every town has their own Oktoberfest, and it goes on for a long time. And I was on my way to Oktoberfest with Lynn, my wife, and she's like, "You got to take the picture with these gals." And so I took, but they were all dressed up in in those sort of things and the guys and their deals. It was so much fun, so much fun. And you could get a beer like this big for like the equivalent of $5. It was really good. This was in Regensburg, Germany. Now, for Airbnbs, we had a separate place. We didn't see anybody after they checked us in. This was one Airbnb where it says, okay, this is an Airbnb. You actually stay with this young couple. So you guys share bathrooms, and some people aren't into that. But they had such a high rating that we thought, okay, it's only for 3 nights. Let's do it. And we did it, and they were such a lovely young couple. This guy right here, Stefan is his name. His grandfather was in one of the failed plots to assassinate Hitler. And there's actually a book about it. And we were looking through the book, and he talked about the fact that there was a failed attempt. His family was extremely wealthy, back then. And of course, that didn't go over very well with the Third Reich. And so they lost a lot of their wealth. But very wonderful young couple. As a matter of fact, we were checking out Sunday morning, and they said, hey, we're going to the lake. Do you want to go to the lake with us? And we said, well, sure we would. So we went with them to the lake. And I have to put this right here. Some of you, and this is a separate retiree presentation if you ever want to hear it, but I'm very much of a rock hound. I polish rocks. I could give you a 1-hour speech on what rocks can teach us about life. But I was walking in that lake, and I felt something very smooth down there, kind of like glassy. Well, I know enough about rocks that when you feel a smooth rock, it's usually it's a rock. It's not just a piece of rough piece of gravel. So you couldn't see it because it was like about as deep as this table. So I had to go down like this, and I was trying to dig it out. I wanted that rock because I could tell it was loose. And so I worked on it about 30 minutes, and I dug that rock out. And here's that rock. I brought it for you. And this was my souvenir from Germany. I lugged this thing around for 30 days. And then I finally paid $75 to send it home. But it's a gorgeous rock with all sorts of colorings and lines, and there's a lot of stories, but that's the part that I felt. You could feel it, and that's what my toes felt. And I was like, okay, that's smooth. That's a good rock down there. I'm going to get that rock. So the 3 of them were like, what is Dave doing out there in that lake? Because I had to bring sticks and everything. It was part of the big, long ridge, but it was loose, but it just needed to be helped a little bit. So that's like the only souvenir I brought back from the trip.
Looks like a piece of meat.
It does, or a human heart or something, but it does. Salzburg, Austria was my favorite place to go. Have any of you been? It has everything. It has castles. It has the Sound of Music. It has World War II history. It has mountains. It has lakes. It has Mozart. It has all sorts of classical. I mean, it is just, you can do everything there. And that is the castle on top of the hill. It was wonderful. My wife and I are big Sound of Music fans. So I don't know if you follow. We had an Instagram account. Were you on Lynn's Instagram when we were over there? We really, really went all out regarding the Sound of Music. And so try not to bore you too much. Like there is the up there is the left from the movie, and there's me emulating Maria. There's at the top of the steps. There's me at the top of the steps. I mean, seriously, there were a lot of people doing what we were doing, but we were doing it so intensely that there were people like, these people are really taking this seriously. But it was really, really cool. The gazebo where they did the little dance and everything, that's the gazebo, and that was fun. There is the house where they lived, and it's not nearly as nice as it used to. Oh, the house where they filmed, not the house where the actually family lived, but the house where they filmed. that was the front of the house. They used a different house, the back of the house. But now it's like a little college dorm or something. There's the fountain that the kids all danced around, and there's Lynn in front of the fountain. And
like a brochure. I told you all this stuff.
I knew. As a matter of fact, we paid for I did my research. And of course, with online, you can research the heck out of this stuff. We went on a tour of Sound and Music where we got on the bus and they did it. I'm not lying to you. I could have done the tour in more depth than I went into. That's how prepared I was. And but it's a big deal. It's a big industry over there. And last summer was the 60th anniversary of it. But we went, seriously, I could do a whole, and I'm not going to, so don't worry, but I could do a whole hour on the Sound of Music in Salzburg. We have two videos that we made of all of the, I mean, it was banana. It was too much, but we had a lot of fun. I wanted to go to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, and we all were prepared to go, and then it snowed the night before and it blocked the mountain. So this is where we went instead. Not a bad second prize, but this is very near Salzburg. So we were in Salzburg. This was a train day trip. One thing that I tell and this is another reason people should travel internationally, is if you travel internationally, things are not going to always go as planned. You've got to be flexible, and it's good to be flexible. There's going to be times that you plan to go to Eagle's Nest and you can't go. So you got to do something else. There are times you go to a town because you want to go to a museum, and you go to the museum and there's a sign that says closed for the day because of a birthday. Well, in the United States, we don't put up with that, right? In Europe, they're saying, you know what, we're closing unannounced for the afternoon because it's my daughter's birthday. Okay. And it's another good reason students should go over there, because you have to be flexible. Okay. You may think you're doing that, you do this. And this is great, but you got to get this out of your mind. And I really wanted to go to Eagle's Nest because World War II history is very interesting to me. I'll go back. Support local artists. We love meeting local artists and buying their drawings and stuff of the places. And, it's very compact. There's a couple times during the trip that we sent stuff home to, like, this guy especially, okay? Just because we didn't need it and it would be there when we got home. But we love buying. You can buy a wonderful, beautiful drawing of something for the equivalent of $35. And that was just a lovely thing. We met him, talked to him. This is in Lauterbrunnen, Switzerland. And we lived in a little place right here. Here's Lynn, there's me. And Lauterbrunnen, Switzerland, that was the only place we went to in Switzerland. It was just lovely. Has anybody been to Switzerland? Okay. This is another picture from Switzerland. We were right in this valley. I mean, this looks like the sort of thing if you go in to get your picture taken that they put behind you. It's just absolutely gorgeous. There was a James Bond film that was filmed in Lauterbrunnen. And so we did that. One thing I should say, though, too, is Salzburg was the city that I was really most excited about going to. And we were going to go there for 4 days, and then we were going to go to Zurich, Switzerland for 3 days. Okay. Well, we got to Salzburg, and it was raining every day. And which was a bummer. I was just bummed. So we did something, and I want to give you a tip on if you ever go over there. The great thing there's a lot of great things about Airbnbs, but one of the great things is you can cancel 24 hours before you check in, and you can get a complete refund. So what we decided to do was kill Zurich, not go to Zurich, and spend those extra 3 days, spend 7 total days in Salzburg. And it was one of the best decisions that we made. I would say if you're ever going to get an Airbnb, though, get the kind that are fully cancelable within 24 hours. Of course, you don't want to abuse it. So all we did was I said, I'm going to find another place to stay in Salzburg, and let's stay here another 3 or 4 days. And Len and I were both on board for it. So that was the only place we went to in Switzerland because we didn't go to Zurich, but it was quite lovely. We went to Italy. That Tic-Tac, anybody been there? This is not actually a photo that I took. This is a famous photo. You see this picture a lot. And the Airbnb we stayed on was in that building right behind that dome, and it looked out this way. And it was just absolutely gorgeous. We actually had 2 other couples that we know from Overland Park that flew over and met us for about a week in Italy. And that's the other two couples there. And we were hiking between the 5 cities. And so that was very, 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 very cool. Then we went with those people, and we got a little farmhouse near Perugia, Italy. And I'm in a swimsuit there. Those aren't shorts I wore, but it had a swimming pool, and this is us eating outside. And it was a very old farmhouse. I mean, we're talking 600-700 years old, and we stayed there, and that was wonderful. We hired a chef to actually make us a meal that night, so we sat outside under the little porch thing and ate there. So that was fun meeting those folks there. We actually stayed on a houseboat for 2 nights, and this was near Pompeii. There's the captain of the boat. This is the boat we were on. We had a little cabin under here, and when I say little cabin, I mean little cabin. But we went out to Capri. This is when we were in Capri. We sailed out to Capri one day, but that was very fun. We did that for a few days. So that was cool. Pompeii. Has anybody been to Pompeii? Okay. You got to go to Pompeii. I've been there twice. I went once on a cruise like 15 years ago, but we were only there for a half day, and I was so entranced, but I was like, we got to come back here. So we did. You know, I always heard the stories about Pompeii and the volcano and all this sort of stuff. I always envisioned it as a little itty bitty town, like Stillwell, Kansas or something. It is a huge, huge city. And it was just amazing. I mean, when you consider that this town is over 2,000 years old. I mean, over 2,000 years old. You know, it's just amazing. The other thing is I grew up thinking, and I think this is kind of some American think, but I kind of grew up thinking that everybody from that time was just a bunch of dolts, you know, hitting each other with sticks and rocks and stuff. The engineering marvels and stuff are unbelievable. I mean, you really got to go to Pompeii, and you really need to spend at least a day there. It is, but it's just fascinating, though, to me to see these things and say, this is from 2,000 years ago. Like, this is a mosaic tile that's at the beginning in one of the homes. And that is their way of saying, beware of our dog. We have a dog, so don't come in. This is a painting that they found, and it's pretty detailed. And it's of a young couple that had a bakery. And it was very much a co-equal ownership between that husband and his wife. They found the records and everything. And I mean, it's about as close as you can have of having a photograph of somebody 2,000 years ago. This is one of the glass things that they found that was intact. And it's just gorgeous. People have this. The fact that they could do this 2,000 years ago is more impressive, even knowing that they didn't even have electricity or anything like that. It was all done with their hands. And this to me is in a room, a big room, and you can see the outline of a child's hand. You can kind of see that there. And who of us is not like when we were a kid, you know, you put your hand on the paper and you trace it, and you make a turkey and you give it to your folks for Thanksgiving. We've all done that, right? And it is really unbelievably meaningful to me that says And this is a picture, you can't see it, but these are pictures of two gladiators and two shields fighting, stick figures. But it is unbelievable for me to think that a little child, little boy or a little girl, 2,000 years ago, put their hand up there and traced around. And now I'm looking at it. It really puts things in perspective as far as one's place in the human race. And you know, they're still doing excavating. And there's a place you can go into, and they have scaffolding above it. And this is above about an area probably about as big as square footage as far as the plot is about as big as the Rainier Center and the Nerman Museum. But we just happened to be there one day when they had dug down clear in one of the rooms to the floor. And we watched them sweep the last 6 inches of dirt and stuff off this floor. And there was a beautiful mosaic there. They will not let you take pictures in there. I just show you a picture. But I told my wife, I go, we're the first people to see this floor for 2,000 years. It's just wonderful, just fascinating. New drinks, free drinks, equals new friends. One of the things that we would do is we would hire people to be like our tour guides and stuff, you know, on those trips. But one thing that we would always do is afterwards, we would just tell the tour guide, hey, Lynn and I would love to take you out to dinner if you want our treat. And usually they're like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, what a great way to get to know other people. And you're getting, 2 hours of stories. And so these were people that we met in that fashion. And just quite a lovely time. And it was nice because there was 2 of us, husband and wife. So these young ladies, it wasn't like some weird guy trying, it was all safe and it didn't seem weird. And they felt safe and everything. So it was really, really nice. But I encourage, to do that. To say, hey, we go out to dinner. Well, our treat. And this is us staying in front of our ship before we came home. We took a 14-day transatlantic cruise back home. This is just some last minute things. I think I'm doing actually pretty well on time. Seek out the smaller restaurants. When you go to a square, there's always a main square and there's always a restaurant and it's kind of the tourist area. Go like 2 or 3 blocks in the core of the city, And I mean, like this is a place we found. That's the front of it. It doesn't look like that big. And this is the place, husband and wife. They had 2 tables. I'm sitting at one and taking the picture, and there's the other table. And it was unbelievably wonderful food. And here's the thing is you can find these places by going to like Yahoo and just saying, what's the good restaurants near where I'm standing? And it said this one, and it had a 5-star as far as it's not a 5-star restaurant, but it had been rated very highly. Vietnamese, I think. Yeah. And we met the couple, and it was just quite wonderful. But there was nobody there. I mean, it looked almost, you had to look to see if it was even open. I love grocery stores in Europe. I love them. This is a grocery store, and this is the entire grocery store. This isn't one aisle of the grocery store. This is me at the front door, and that is it. You're seeing every wall of the grocery store. I absolutely love this. And I mean, you can see it. There's those yellow boxes. There's those yellow boxes. I absolutely love this because it's like you go over there. First of all, it's like 3 rolls for €1. €1 is pretty close to $1. I want to say a couple of things about that. Number one, you can't get 3 of anything in the United States for $1. Nothing, especially a handmade roll like that. Secondly, that includes tax. So you take your 3 rolls and you hand them €1 and you walk away. You don't like, okay, well, that's $1.17. Do you have 2 pennies? And you're playing I mean, I don't know why we don't. I know why we do it this way in the United States, but they're so much smarter. It's €1. You hand them €1, you're done. Have you experienced this? It doesn't seem like it's a big deal. I'm going to tell you, it's a big deal. It's wonderful. You want some chips? These are the chips we have. You don't like those chips? I guess you won't have chips tonight. Okay? And I love it. Whereas if you want to go get corn chips at Price Chopper, there's 50 yards of them. There's scoop, there's round shape, there's triangle shape, there's lime, there's many different brands. There's this one. I mean, it's too much. And I have read this. I'm very much into student emotional and mental health. There are too many choices in this. We think more choices is more happiness. It is not true. We're all older. Remember when there's 3 things you can watch on TV tonight: ABC, CBS, NBC, and CBS doesn't come in very well. It made life a little bit simpler, didn't it? Now there are literally thousands of things you can watch. It's overwhelming, right? Everything, there's too many choices, and it is most of them are of no importance, like chips. And it adds to people's anxiety, constantly having to make choices. And I mean, I do this. It's like you get coffee. There's a million different derivations of coffee at Starbucks, right? It used to be, do you want sugar or cream with your coffee? That was it. Enough about grocery stores. One more. You want cereal? Cereal. Do you have, no, if it's not there, we don't have it. And you won't be eating cereal tonight. It is just wonderful. Love it. Top 10 list of European trips. Okay, if you're going to go to Europe, stay a while. Because most of the effort and pain in the rear and money is spent getting there. It is cheaper to vacation in Europe than it is to vacation in the United States. Much cheaper. The average, we would usually stay in Airbnbs that had several rooms. Our biggest thing is we always want a balcony and a view. We paid the equivalent of about $110 a night for our Airbnbs. You can't get a cheap, crummy motel in this city for $110. Now, granted, we went in off season. The other thing is we paid the equivalent of $49 each to have a train pass for a month in Germany. That's one Uber trip. And we rode trains for a month. Food. For $30, for the equivalent of $30, Lynn and I could both get a salad, both get a meal, both get a glass of wine, share a dessert for the equivalent of $30. We can't go to Chick-fil-A and get drinks for $30. And this is a handmade pizza by a local pizzeria owned by a family for generations. It is cheaper to vacation in Europe than it is to vacation here. The other thing is tipping over there. It's like €1 or $2. Over here, it's like 20% of an $80 bill. Really? It's crazy. So if you're going to go there, stay a while. There you go. I just said that. Airbnbs are cheaper, nicer, and more flexible than hotels. However, very picky with who we travel with. If somebody is like they're persnickety, they need to have a 5-star hotel. They want everything predictable and planned. Don't go with the Krugs because we're more bohemian, and we just do. We experience it. You've been in Europe with me, Dave.
That's the way I am too, Dave.
Yeah, and if something falls through, I don't make a big to-do about it. It's just the way it is. We stayed at a 21 Airbnbs. One of them was not good. I went in there. It was in Rome. It smelled too musty. So I called Airbnb and I said, we can't stay here. They gave me a refund. I found another Airbnb. It was even nicer and cheaper because it was last minute. It was just great. You can't do this with hotels though. You can't get your money back. It's every room kind of looks the same. We stayed in places that were hundreds of years old, had history. There was one place though, the place in Cinque Terre, it was 185 steps to our room, no elevator. So some people can't do it. Some people can't do it. You don't need a car. Use the trains, much cheaper with that one. And I don't have to worry about parking or anything. The internet makes everything easier because literally when you go to Europe these days, you can go to Apple Maps and go, okay, I want to go to the Brandenburg Gate. And it will say you walk out your door, go 2 blocks, go down to the loft, go to platform 8B in 12 minutes, take train 17. You'll take it 8 stops. It's exactly, you can do everything that way. So much better. We like the smaller cities off the beaten paths, much less tourists, especially if you're going in the summer. Now we're going to Europe. You know, one thing I could go in October on my sabbatical, but I do still work. You know, I can't do that normally. But Lynn and I are leaving the day after graduation to go to Europe for 3 weeks. And we will be in and out before the tourism hits. If you can get there before mid-June. So I have figured out graduation. Congratulations, everybody. We're on the plane. We're going there. So we're going to Gdansk, Poland. We're going to Copenhagen, Denmark. We're going to take a cruise up through the fjords. And then we're going to stay with our friends from Netherlands for 5 days. Okay, 3 cities for 4 days each is better than six cities for 2 days each. Never stay somewhere less than 3 nights. And like I said, I was really glad we made the decision to kill Zurich and experience Salzburg at a deeper level.
Yeah, you could you had to do a lot of stuff in one day, or did you do something else?
We usually would do. I do not want to be the typical American. We got to go do this. We got to go do this. No, at most one thing in the morning and one thing later in the day. And some days it was just one thing. I really just enjoyed puttering around the city. And there were times that I wrote. There were times that my wife and I'd say, hey, I'm going to be on my own, and she'd be on her own. She's like, I'm fine in Strasbourg, France today by myself. Lynn and I have a very wonderful relationship. We've been married 36 years. You've met her. And I really wondered, gosh, we're going to be 95 days together. I was very happy. We enjoyed each other's company. There weren't very many fights, hardly at all. We just quite enjoyed each other's company. And we're very similar. She's pretty laid back. I'm pretty laid back on this sort of stuff. But we didn't want to overdo it. You know, these Americans, it's like, we're going to see Amsterdam on Monday. We're going to see Paris on Tuesday, and we're going to see Berlin. That is crazy. Ridiculous. Avoid touristing if at all possible. Pack light. Like I said, I'll send you the spreadsheet if you want. I literally have everything. I have like 1 roll of chapstick. You know, I mean, it is so detailed. It's unbelievable. But, and I never take a big suitcase anywhere. I'll take that backpack when we go. I did it for 95 days. I could do it for 21. That's easy schmeezy. Don't go with, you can't do these things if you can't walk or the people with you can't walk. It's just the way it is. And we had to traverse 185 stairs. Not everybody can do that. And that's all right. But you got to make sure that everybody on your trip. I'm going to tell you, when Dan Owens and I took those students, they couldn't keep up with us. And Dan has an artificial leg. And I would tell students, hey, look, you got to keep up. But young people these days, a lot of them are so sedentary, they are not used to walking. And there were days that we would walk miles and miles and miles. And it was like, if we ever do it again, we're literally going to have a physical test, because they would slow everything down. And, but you got to be able to walk. Got to be able to walk. Yeah. If it's the right couple, I'd go with another couple, but it's got to be somebody that can walk, that is not going to be upset about little silly things. You know, my salad doesn't. No, I don't. So no, I'm happy to do that, but you know, I'm going to be 60 this year, which I can't believe. I'm going to tell you, there's some people that are my age, some of my peers, that they are, and some of them can't help it, but they couldn't walk like we do. You got to be able to walk and take stairs and stuff. So we're really kind of picky, but we do it. You'll never regret this sort of trip. If I get to heaven someday and God goes, what was your favorite 95 days in a row? It was this. I will never regret it. Lynn and I, we live in a very modest home. We have one nice car and then an old beater. I've been wearing this shirt probably for 10, 12 years. I can tell because I don't want to watch my old videos. I'm still wearing this. But we love to travel. Travel is a big, big thing for us. I'm an accountant, so I kept track of everything, every single penny on this trip in one Quicken category called sabbatical. And, you know, whether it was meals, Airbnbs, train tickets, airline tickets, the cruise, tickets for our tourist guide, everything for 95 days. When I was all done, when I paid the bills and everything, it was $31,500. We were there 95 days. Bang this out on your calculator there, Mr. Ellis. $31,500 divided by 95 days. And that is how much per day? $31,500 divided by 95. I should ask Jonathan. 31,500 divided by 95.
Okay, so
It's kind of good. I'm gonna guess around 330. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just say 330 a day. That's for me and my wife. Huh? Okay, 330. You can't go to Vegas for 330 a day. You can't even get a hotel for 330, let alone have meals. And this is everything. And I want you to keep in mind too, that if we were in Overland Park, we'd have to eat, right? We would have to eat. And I bet all the stuff we didn't buy at Costco was at least $3,000. So do you see what I'm saying? This is a very cost-efficient way to travel. Very cost-efficient. It really is not even near that because I would, in 95 days, I don't know how much I'd spend on groceries. I also stopped my car insurance while I was gone. I stopped my cable, all those sort of things. So it was very much cost efficient. So
Travel agent at all?
Nope.
Did it all on your own?
I didn't know. I asked a lot of people.
Yeah.
I had friends from all over, and I would call people or we'd do Zooms, and I'd say, okay, we're going to be in this area of Italy. And they go, you got to go to Perugia. And I'd go, I've never heard of Perugia. And so I'd go look at Perugia, and I go, this is a beautiful town. Like I said, we like the smaller towns that have an old town. We love college towns. We want it to be available, most things are, by public transportation. We went to Assisi one day. That was a day trip from Perugia. That was wonderful. And Francis of Assisi, big Catholic. But it was actually tremendous. But I'm convinced that one of the best things we can do for our students is take them overseas. And Dan and I are very good at this. We're very good at getting together and forming a community. But I have thought that someday when I retire, though, I might try to organize trips. Because I studied these cities, and we went to Nuremberg, and I did the city tour of Nuremberg. I did the city tour, and I think I did actually just as good as the times we hired somebody. But I would love to take students to on a European trip for a couple weeks. But any questions or discussions?
Did you really say the cruise home was cheaper than the airport?
Here's where it was. That cruise was about, I don't know, $2,200, something like that. But when you consider that was 14 days of hotel, that was transportation and meals, there's no way for 14 days we could have bought plane tickets, hotels, and food. So that's what it was. Yeah. And we went to Barcelona. We went to some other places. Portugal, yeah. And then we had a 7-day, and it was actually really nice. Our last 7-day were at seas, but it was really nice to have kind of a decompression period after this thing. And it was good time too, because I had a lot of lamentations and weeping in my room about the election results. And so I was kind of glad that I needed that time to decompress and try not to fling myself into the sea. But it was such a wonderful experience.
The best tourist experience you have if you have an opportunity to stay with a family.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
hotel and stuff.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult to do, but even staying at Also, wherever you stay.
Yeah, with those folks. They're wonderful. We'd love to go visit them again. And of course, we always tell them, hey, if you want to come to Kansas City, you don't pay a dime here. Come here. The World Cup's gonna be here. And but we really enjoy meeting new people. And Dave and I have traveled with Lynn. He's the type that will strike up a conversation with somebody, at a little cafe in Amsterdam is where we were at. And Dave knows how quickly I walk as well.
And so did your wife.
Yes.
You walk. Because I stayed with her.
Yes.
You were ahead of us.
Yes, I can walk fast. So, other questions though?
Well, I would like to stay at Airbnbs, but by myself, I'm really hesitant because I don't know if I end up somewhere and I'm by myself, I don't have a lot of defense. So I just think it's better for female.
Yeah. And if I was a single female, I probably would go with somebody else. I mean, whether it's right or wrong, the reality is just that. But all unsafe. One thing is there's not a million guns over there. They're all saying, when I talk to people over there, they're like, I don't know how you feel safe in your country. And so I felt safer walking the streets of Perugia at night than I would walking in Kansas City at night. There's just
a lot by myself. Just because I'll be gone for 3 weeks. Well, it depends on what I'm doing, but and I just, I'd like to stay in an Airbnb, but I just don't feel like, I don't know if I get there and it's really weird.
I know.
Get out of the situation, so I don't. I
understand. I completely understand. Everybody's got to do what they feel comfortable with. And I know some people too. It's just the luck or unluck of the draw. They've just had some physical situations and they can't walk anymore. It's not that they're lazy or they don't want to.
Right.
They can't do it. And so this is why Lynn and I do it now, because things can change overnight.
Absolutely.
And this is why we're doing it this summer. I never regret money spent on travel. Never. I regret money spent on other things. But experiences and stuff, no. I absolutely love that. My goal is at the end of my life that I spent a year out of the United States, a total of a year, not a year in a row. But if I add up all of our overseas trips, it will be at least a year. I'm about 2/3 there now.
I was gonna say, you're well on your way.
Yeah. But we really value seeing the world. And I think it would be, this is the thing about kids in Europe is you have a kid lives in Italy. They've been to 6 or 7 or 8 different countries because they're all so close. You got kids in Oklahoma that they've never been out of the Midwest. Everybody they know is white and Protestant and straight.
Yeah.
And so they have a very narrow view of the world. And it's like the way that you say everybody's not exactly like me is you go overseas and you meet new people. This is why the International Club and diversity is such a good thing, because we are not all the same. But there's a lot of towns in this country that they are all the same. They are all the same. Everybody's kind of the same. And that, nothing you can do about it, but you need to be aware of that and know that sometimes can create blinders for you when considering other points of view, at least in my opinion. So, that's why I'm such a big believer in those sort of things. So.
I want to just say something really quick. I just got back from a wedding. I think I went to Malawi for the wedding on Monday. And I got there to where I was going, and it was for a friend at the wedding. I got there where I was going, and my 5 days where I was staying. So I had to wear the same clothes for 5 days. Other people who have been on, that is just part of my experience. Then I get in this nice hotel, but all they have is a trickling of water in the shower with cold water. And so again, I had to experience that. But if you haven't traveled before, that could be really frustrating, but for me it wasn't.
The other thing that's nice though, when you have a backpack, is nobody loses your luggage except for you, because it's all. But the thing we learned though is, it's not like I had one pair of shoes, but before I went on the cruise, I bought a pair of flip-flops so I could, when I go to the pool and stuff. Yeah. You can buy things over there. And it's funny though, there's a few things like they don't have foot powder. I don't know what they're doing with their feet, but in Germany, you cannot find like foot powder, like athlete's foot. And so things like that, you need to make sure you bring because they don't sell it over there, like any sort of prescription stuff. But as far as clothes, as it got a little colder, I bought a sweatshirt in Salzburg and, wore that. But it was wonderful. We have so much stuff we don't need. And oh my gosh, we had such high expectations for it, and it was all above my expectations. And I mean, obviously I just dipped my toe in the pool. I mean, we were in 21 cities. There's more than half the cities I didn't even mention their name.
5 days, and you in any place more than 2 to 5 days?
No, we were, and I will tell you, if I could do it all again, I would probably stay 4 or 5 days in every city.
That makes sense. But I was like 2 to 3 days. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't see very much of that time.
Yeah,
that wasn't your goal.
We found 3 nights was pretty good.
Okay.
Because it's pretty good. And the other thing is like, well, what if we get somewhere and it's kind of a bummer? There were only a couple places we went that I was like, this is kind of doesn't do much for me. So, but there's always something. But you just didn't want to be completely crazy hurried like a lot of Americans are. Yeah. They got to rush from one thing to the next.
It still seems like you covered a lot of ground.
We did.
In that much time.
We did. And here's a lesson we learned. It's like, you're not going to get to every art museum. And it's like, there's a lot of people that when they're in art museum A, all they're doing is thinking about what they're missing in B and C and D. Or what's over the mountain, or what's in that day trip that's just down the road. You can't do everything. You need to be where you are and say, you know what? I'm sure there's a lot of little cool towns, just an hour's train ride. We can't go to all of them, but let's experience this one. And it's hard to do, but you really have to get into that mindset. You have to get into that mindset. A good question. I love Europe so much, and I'm so comfortable over there. I think I would, but it would be a lot different experience. It would be a lot different experience. And like I always tell my wife, you can look up what I make, and we're pretty, we live in a modest sized home. We can do pretty much everything we want, but we can't. We can do anything we want, but we can't do everything. So if we go to Asia, that just means that we can't go here. And there's a lot of places in Europe I still really, really want to. I really want to go to Israel someday. That's a non-European place that I want to go to. But and my son's in the Navy. He's been to Japan and Thailand and Vietnam and those places and loves them. Sure, I would enjoy them, but European history is just fascinating to me. It's just so fascinating to me.
If you go to Normandy sometime,
yeah, we were actually, my wife and I, we had a trip planned to Normandy. We were going to 2 weeks or 10 days there. We were going to Paris. We were going to Normandy. We had our tour set up. We had everything. And then COVID happened because it was scheduled for March of 2020 over spring break. And I was taking a day off before and after, so I had about a 10 or 12 days period there. And COVID, you heard about that. So, but Normandy is on my bucket list. I would definitely want to go to Normandy. But, I've been to a lot of really impressive. I've been to Anne Frank's house. We took the students to a concentration camp in Germany. We've been to the Holocaust Memorial. We went to that with the students. There's a lot of really, I mean, another thing we saw a lot of music, but we saw a small little quintet or something play Mozart music in a room in Salzburg where Mozart literally performed. And so it was just wonderful. It was just so. That was interesting to you.
Oh,
Great, thank you. Yeah.
So, and yeah, so that's it.
I hope you get to go back to Eagle's Nest.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we will. I'm sure we will. I think we're kind of pretty much for, knock on wood, but I think we're going to try to plan like a 3-week trip right after graduation, in May. Because again, I don't want to go in July. I just heard Europe in July is just crazy. And in August, there's a lot of things closed. So, but we just love it so much. We're willing to forego a lot of other things in life just to get over there. And we're really good at finding the deals. We're really good at finding